Hello and welcome to another Overlord lore video, and as usual, thanks to my Patreons for supporting this channel. Now today, we will discuss Narberal Gamma. And the third of the Battlemaid is famous for two things. On one hand, a few highly memeable frames where she's not looking annoyed, dismissive, disgusted or bloodthirsty for once. And on the other hand, she is renowned for being the strongest regular Battlemaid level-wise. Narberal Gamma is min-maxed for lightning magic and lightning damage. And most certainly no coincidence, a gamma ray burst is a short-lived but incredible devastating flash of light originating from a star. So not only are the Pleiades named after a star constellation and regarded as stars by the regular maids, but Narberal's magic also mimics a death ray originating from one. And in addition to her high level when compared to her sisters, being able to use, at least according to Fluida Paridane, the 8th tier of magic, as well as to maximize and twin it, are the things that grant Narberal her incredible power when compared to the other Battlemaids. Anyway, let me explain why being able to twin and maximize magic is kind of a huge deal. The new world works in rough accordance to the Yggdrasilian rule set, which in turn is based on pen and paper. So, and this is just me making up numbers, if a normal Chain Dragon Lightning would inflict, let's just say, everything between 5 and 100 points of damage, with 52.5 points on average, maximizing the spell raises its damage output straight to 100, thus eliminating any RNG in the process, as well as increasing the damage output. And so far, every engagement between strong characters had only maximized versions of magic on display, likely illustrating that maximizing spells is how endgame combat in Yggdrasil was normally done. But Narberal's magic talents doesn't end there, because she is able to twin spells, aka to cast one spell 2 times in parallel. So instead of 100 points of damage, Narberal is able to inflict 200 points of damage. And in order to show you how big of a deal this is, let's calculate the damage in a battle. Let's say a normal group of enemies would suffer anything between 5 and 100 points of damage from Chain Dragon Lightning. Thanks to Narberal's abilities, anyone hit by both spells would suffer 200 points of damage. If the group of enemies has a magic resistance of, let's say, 20 points of damage, then a not maxed and twinned Chain Dragon Lightning attack would only inflict 32.5 points of damage on average, while the twinned maxed out version reliably inflicts 160 points worth of damage. While all of this is somewhat standard for a normal level 100 mage, for a Pleiades member, a regular Pleiades member, it is quite impressive, considering that Narberal's level is way below that of any max level players. And with this powerful magic at her back, Narberal is easily able to clear out whole groups of low tier summons, for example Yaldabaoth's demons. So while Yuri Alpha is focused on speed and melee damage, and Lupus Regina is a reasonably balanced healer doggo, Narberal Gamma is kind of a one-trick pony, but therefore able to actually deal somewhat significant damage to a level 100 player. And since Narberal's level and spell tier is quite high, she would likely be able to circumvent some, if not most of the nullification abilities, especially when considering that lightning magic has piercing probabilities. Especially when considering that lightning magic has the ability to pierce, and many armored enemies are specializing in physical defense, which in turn makes magic defense their weak spot, which the sadistic Narberal will more than happily exploit. Though I should mention that at least in Yggdrasil, most of the level 100 players that were using metal armors oftentimes opted for a high magic resistance, especially against lightning magic, for this very reason. But one of Ainz Ooal Gowns' first experiments had shown that this is not the case in the new world. So it therefore makes sense that Narberal focuses on magic damage infliction over range, and physical and especially magic defense, since in close quarter combat she would be at a huge disadvantage due to her low HP, her meager agility, and her low attack, especially because ever since the battle between Ainz Ooal Gown and Yaldabaoth and his demon mates, we know that attacks can be used to interrupt spellcasting, though Naberal could probably take a hit or two before going down, especially since she is armored and she has the abilities to reinforce her defense with shield wall or reinforce armor, as well as the ability to summon bunny ears, bunny pawns, and bunny tails, and equip herself with these wonderful new body parts. Now, bunny ears will increase the caster's ability to detect and locate sounds. Bunny pawns will increase the luck of its caster, so if Narberal is challenged to Kazuma's favorite kind of duel, she could go the Aqua route of increasing her luck, losing again to Kazuma, realizing that Aqua is completely useless, and then probably opt to kill him instead, only to be scolded by Ainz Ooal Gowns again. Last but not least, the casting of Bunny Tail will lower aggression directed towards the caster, which reminds me of Ilyana from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, who was also a magic caster specializing in lightning magic, and who had the ability Shade, which also lowered the chance of enemies attacking her. And come to think of it, Momon really reminds me of the Dark Knight. Anyway, if Narberal casts all three of these spells, she will change into a bunny girl outfit, which might not be as protective as her full-plate maid armor, but it is certainly a step up in regards of luck and distraction, possibly compelling the odd guy here and there to stop attacking her for a moment. If this rather spicy distraction fails, her fly and teleport spells enable her to quickly traverse any battlefield, and more importantly, circumnavigate any enemies too strong for her, or just with an unfavorable matchup. And with teleportation she is also able to appear behind the enemy's back and attack, something her creator loved to do, and during her battle with Khajiit, she even does it like her creator would have done, that is with a dagger in the back. Aside from this callback with her min-max attributes, Narberal Gamma strongly mirrors her creator, the supreme being Nishikienrai. Of all of the members of Ainz Ooal Gowns, this ninja had the highest physical attack power, so it's only natural that his Battlemaid also excels in damage dealing, but in contrast to her creator, Narberal is focused on magical damage, with neglectable physical attack, and even then it was enough to knock down a skeletal dragon. With his focus on stealth and attack power, most of Nishikienrai's enemies wouldn't see much more than a flash of light before their defeat, which is also reflected in Narberal's focus on lightning magic. The scene where Narberal is used to search for the missing adventurer further deepens the parallels between the two, since Nishikienrai was the one who discovered the Great Tomb of Nazarick in the first place. Additionally, Narberal's battle against Khajiit was in front of a tomb. And furthermore, Nishikienrai fought alongside Overlord while clearing the Great Dungeon of Nazarick before Ainz Ooal Gowns turned it into their guild base. Considering that Overlord is a magic caster able to surpass super tier magic with a single spell, Nishikienrai might have gotten some inspiration from his friend, as well as realizing that a good magic defense is quite valuable. However, there's one key difference. While Nishikienrai was described as an easygoing and friendly ninja with paper-thin defense, Narberal is somewhat withdrawn, indifferent, condescending, and defensive. For example, her main way of making conversations with outsiders is to describe a certain number of humans with as many insect names as battlemaidishly possible. And something tells me she has a good connection to Entoma, so while this doppelganger Battlemaid is somewhat able to imitate the damage output of the glass cannon build of her creator, Narberal's personality, as well as some aspects of her character build, are drastically different, which is quite fitting for a mid-level doppelganger. Her reclusive and somewhat indifferent nature is also symbolized in one of her classes, Armored Mage. So instead of being open, she, as mentioned, is quite defensive. So while being min-maxed for lightning magic, her classes still enable her to wear quite substantial armor, favoring protection over quick movement, which turns her basically into a laser turret. This build also somewhat reminds me of Dark Mage from Fire Emblem 13, but around her sisters she is much less reclusive and in general a bit more open, though with her disinterest remaining intact. If Narberal Gamma is forced to fight outside her field of expertise, Nabe is inferior to almost any comparable balanced character. In fact, while more or less armorless, she was pushed quite a bit around by Khajiit's skeletal dragons, though to her weak weapon, her low dexterity and her low HP. So like a turret, she lacks flexibility and therefore is reliant on her teleportation spell in order to change position and gain an advantageous one. If means of protection and retreat are denied, she is extremely vulnerable, as illustrated in her battle against Khajiit. By the way, fun fact, Nabe hasn't drawn her sword, because swords deal cutting damage, which is fairly useless against skeletal enemies. But her sheathted blade inflicts blunt trauma, which was quite effective when defending herself against CGI. So she might be inflexible, reclusive, defensive in nature, but she can also be quite pragmatic at times, unless she has to interact with lesser life forms without violence. In that case, insect insults it is, a fact that Ainz Ooal Gowns learned far too late. See, Bone Daddy thought to himself that the most human-looking character should accompany him while he worked under the mantle of Momon the Adventurer. So who better to help a ruler in disguise than an actual doppelganger mate? Well, it turns out, Lupus Regina would have been better at concealing her sadistic nature behind her cute and endearing maid character. Granted, you will have to throw her a bone like once a month, but for the great calcium-rich Ainz Ooal Gowns, this shouldn't be much of a problem. On the other hand, Narberal Gamma still remains unable to not describe random humans as Entoma's favorite snacks for prolonged periods of time. But after some initial slip-ups and one really bad mistake, where she revealed Albedo's name to the public, something I will talk later about, she became quite restrained. For example, a certain lowlife noble tried to molest her, and he lived happily even after, almost without any injury, and just one threat to his life, at least until he ran into Enri's army and Lupus Regina's goblins. Honestly though, if there's one group in Overlord I truly hate, it has to be the nobles of the Rierstyle's kingdom. Their ignorance, their arrogance, their entitled and their spoiled childlike attitude is so unnerving. You know what, at least for a month or two, I would like them to experience the hardship of rural life firsthand. And by rural life I imagine something on the lines of a one-way ticket to the happy farm, and by 1 month or two, I refer to their remaining lifespan. And moments like these, where Naberal has to deal with complete idiots, are the times where I truly pity her. I said it during one of my other videos, but we never really experienced the horror of being surrounded by carnivorous cockroaches, unless you accidentally reach under your bed or behind your furniture. But the acute horror of having to hide your true self behind a professional mask, to restrain yourself, to restrain your emotions and your speech to somewhat acceptable levels, and the pain of working on seemingly pointless, tedious, menial, boring and bothersome tasks, while being surrounded by people you can't stand, and having to deal with that one obnoxious idiot you really despise from the bottom of your heart for a full 5 days a week, somehow gets to me and many readers of Overlord all around the globe. Narberal really should try to talk with Kazuma about being surrounded by idiots, before she tries to violently murder him, or after she got smacked again. If she gets a special, I really wish I were somewhere different right now. Sticker from Shizu, then Narberal Gamma would be the Squidward of Overlord, or at least the Adventurer Guild. And while she more or less hates being surrounded by humans she can't kill during most of her duty, as long as you didn't have to interact with her, you likely won't notice Narberal's cold-hearted attitude and be captivated by her looks. Looks which earned her the name of Beautiful Princess Nabe, and she's frequently compared to Renatier Chadilong Riel Vaislev Abdul Jamal, the future #1 of the kingdom. Funny how public perception can be absolutely right while being completely wrong, considering that both of them can be quite deceiving. Now I also want to defend the idea that Lupus Regina Beta would be a much better companion for Momon than Narberal Gamma. Nabe, while looking quite human, is for the most of the story unable to not insult her fellow humans. In fact, I'm certain that the phrase fellow humans are 2 words that could get anyone killed. Lupus Regina, while also not fond of humans or outsiders in general either, can hide her true self behind the facade of a smiling, cheerful girl, like Renna does. But a commonly raised objection against this team constellation is that it would seemingly be quite odd if Lupus Regina Beta, a healer, would never attempt to heal her fellow friend and adventurer Momon. Now, while this is true, it is equally as odd to have no healer in the party at all, something that was remarked by Best Girl Gargeran during her discussion with Evil Eye and Climb. And while to the undead Ainz Ooal Gown healing magic would be a deadly weakness, the Overlord has something called High Tier Nullification Level 3, which, as the name suggests, nullifies the effects of all low tier spells, thus rendering the Overlord immune to the attacks of his healer. And even if Lupus Regina would use a higher tier healing spell, it was shown during Ainz's confrontation with the Sunlight Scripture that damage of the magnitude of even 7 tier spells are quite literally a laughing matter to Ainz Ooal Gown. Also, he could just simply wear his monk outfit under his black armor and opt to use Perfect Warrior, like he has done later in the story, to compensate for the other items. So although I like Narberal as a character stressed out by her unfulfilling job, that is as an adventurer of course, Lupus Regina would likely have been the better companion. And last but not least, Narberal made an incredible big mistake, with potentially severe consequences. During her journey together with Swords of Darkness and Inferior Balear, she accidentally told the group that Momon quote-unquote has albedo. And later Inferior was able to learn from Henry about her two saviors, Ainz Ooal Gown and albedo. And thus he was able to realize that both Ainz Ooal Gown and Momon are the same person. Something that could have potentially leaked out during his time as a hostage/living arcane amplifier. Zur Norn, at least before they put the Crown of Wisdom on him, could have potentially mind-controlled him or invaded his memory, and thus gained knowledge about the connection between Ainz Ooal Gown and Momon. And while neither Khajiit nor Clementine before her orange juicening showed concern about Momon, the possibility remains that this is due to having only second-hand knowledge about an event told by a village girl with altered memories. But since their bodies, blood, orange juice and pile of ash of both Khajiit and Clementine had disappeared, there is still the possibility that someone with a bit more knowledge about Yggdrasil and Ainz Ooal Gown had gotten his or her hands on this most vital piece of information. And with this vague and ominous ending, I will end this video. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to El Capone, Andy, Angel of Death, Bad Guy Yi, Boyzilla, Diabetic Centaur, Dystopia, Thales Catus, Gigafight, Ghost of Epicness, Hector Moreno, Hoss, Jason, Chromius, Large, Lord Touch Me, Lord Ulbert Elaine Odell, Matt, Matt C, Marcos, Mr. Shoes, Mindless Wrath, Minnow 13, Mirtis, Primus 11, Sasuga Einsama, Sebastian, Search, Sparkly Unicorn, and Vash Hawkeye. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, stay safe, over and out.